Good.
Thank you. So I don't like deadlines, but I'm gonna go fast. So when Natalie asked me to do this in-depth presentation, I thought, okay, so how am I going to explain to people who don't have ADHD necessarily? Usually my audience is people with ADHD, but how am I going to explain to other people? How am I going to illustrate, I guess, what I am, what ADHD is? And I thought I went into my phone and I decided to pick slides that are actually quotes. So these are not only quotes that are going to resonate with people with ADHD, but I think that they'll resonate with everybody. And it will also give you guys an idea of how I show up, what I'm about as an ADHD coach. So Natalie said already, a little bit, but she asked me to do a slide to present myself. So that's what I'm going to do. I did grow up in Philadelphia right after college. I moved here. So I've been living here in Paris, France, my whole adult life. I got a degree in child psychology from Tufts University in Boston. And then again, I moved here 1 week after I graduated. I was working for a while as a fashion buyer in Paris. Those were the only people that could actually give me my working papers. Thank you very much. And then I raised my children for about 8 years and started my business as a professional organizer in France. So I was going into people's homes and helping them to reorganize their space. And it was at that time that I started realizing that there was a population that was different from what we would call the neurotypical brains. And so I realized that this was something that was very intriguing for me. And I didn't realize why at the time, but I was very attracted to it. So I actually went back to school online during COVID, which I'll talk about in a second, to become an ADHD coach. I know this is a little bit blocked there. Maybe that's a little bit better. So during COVID, I went back to school and I became an ADHD coach for professional organizers. So the reason why some people think that this is a little bit odd, but the professional organizers are the ones who see the disorganization and the lack of what we call executive function and organizing through in our population. So that's why a lot of people, professional organizers, go on to become ADHD coaches. So for me, what I've gravitated towards is one-on-one sessions with adults who have ADHD. I also work from time to time with their partners and give them support as well. I think it's important to say that I do not have ADHD myself, but my husband has ADHD and my daughter, who's 22 years old, also does. So in addition to the one-on-one with Natalie's help as my business coach, to give her a little plug, I have been working on group sessions, facilitating group sessions for women with ADHD, which is like part support group and part also teaching about and learning about our brains and how they work best. So very often when people have a discovery call with me, they ask me what are the results that they can expect. And I kind of broke it down into macro, micro, just because people might be familiar with these terms. So macro, more like the big picture. When you work with an ADHD coach or with me in any case, the idea is to gain a better understanding of how your brain works and create a life that fits. This is my slogan, creating a life that fits, because I I think it's important to know that if you feel like that you have always not fit in, it's more about finding a life that fits you rather than fitting into what other people's expectations are or society's expectations. So I think that that's an important result of working with the coaching, and also gaining clarity on what is truly important and acquiring strategies to handle big things. Like I use big emotions, big projects, big tasks, all of these things. It's important to know that the strategies actually come from you, from yourself. It's a very empowering process if any of you have ever done coaching in any way, shape, or form. And then I would say micro results, which doesn't mean that they're necessarily small, because there's no such thing as big wins or small wins. Somebody came to me and they had made 8 different attempts to complete their thesis. This guy was very, very, like we say in French, attachant, or charming, and I was very happy to work with him and help him to actually achieve his goal and complete that thesis finally. He had serious deadline energy going on. I also worked with somebody who saved their marriage. They said thanks to the improved communication and self-advocacy that they had. And this was something that was particularly dear to me, living with somebody who has ADHD. I know how important that is. And also, finding a new job. Very often people find themselves in jobs which actually are working against their brains and not using their strengths and their ADHD brains to thrive in their jobs. And then there's the millions and millions of tasks which people avoid and procrastinate about, and they finally take action on. So this is the first quote. So I'm going to read it out loud just in case somebody, I know some of you might just be listening but not looking at the slides. Instead of focusing so much on a to-do list, I'm starting a to-be list. Things I want to be: happy, calm, loving, healthy, awesome. So, I really do feel that to-do lists are overrated, and people with ADHD often they really focus on this and sometimes even hyper focus or fixate on the to-do list and, oh, productivity, it's all about the productivity. But, at the end of the day, it's not all about our to-do list. We have to live our life, we have to be and live. And I really feel like this quote highlights the idea about the little wins and just being. Uh, it's not always about the task that you need to accomplish. Another one of my clients, actually, instead of a to-do list, she said that she felt like that was too much pressure. So she created a tend to list, as if she was tending to her garden. And that actually, she felt like it took a lot of pressure off her. And then, sorry, what I didn't say was I have a different client who writes a done list. So at the end of the day, they, keep track and, instead of thinking about, oh, I didn't get anything done today, or I wasn't productive. Well, actually, when you go back and think about what you did do and you write it down, it's a way of processing it and, feeling like you got that little win. Fear has two meanings: F-E-A-R. I love this. Forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. The choice is yours. I think this is a really good example of reframing. So going from, something negative or something pessimistic, which would be like in flight mode. Oh my gosh, wow, forget everything and just drop it and run, to fight mode. So going from flight to fight, face everything and rise. And I think it's important to note that the choice is yours. It's all of ours, and we do have a choice. We can control our mindset. We can control the way that we think about things. And if you know Natalie, she has taught me and a lot of other people about manifesting, and that, what we put out there is actually what we very often get back. So I do believe that we control things a lot more than we think that we do. If you don't make time for your wellness, you will be forced to make time for your illness. Read that again, which I'm going to do. If you don't make time for your wellness, you will be forced to make time for your illness. So wellness is definitely one of the most important subjects in coaching, one of the most popular, I would say, what we like to call self-care, right? And it's also the coaching subject that most people with ADHD neglect, but that's for another time. I'm sure that you neurodivergent people on this call are going to relate to this. So the first picture on the top there, and if you see my cursor, you have spreadsheet brain and I have palette brain. It's actually, for me, it's the opposite. I have the spreadsheet brain and you might have the palette brain. I love this. Just, it really illustrates the difference that all of our brains are different. And even though we all have the same components, we all have the same neurotransmitters and we all have the prefrontal cortex, that's fine. But the way that our brains are wired is different. We all have different strengths and challenges. And I think that this illustration really gets that message across and drives it home. And by the way, speaking of brain differences, ADHD is the worst name ever for a disorder because it really shouldn't even be called a disorder, I believe. Ugly action beats perfection. So this one, I'm sure that a lot of people can relate to this idea of perfectionism, but especially people who have struggled their whole lives with neurodiversity and not fitting in and not feeling like that they do things well. So very often, to compensate for that, they strive for perfection. And this can be a huge obstacle to getting things done or even to starting a task in the first place. And then here's my other two favorite quotes. It's about progress, not perfection. And my absolute favorite: done is better than perfect. So I don't think that I need to explain this illustration of these ladders. But obviously the person who's trying to make the perfect ladder on the right is not going anywhere, basically, or they're not climbing the obstacle in any case. So for the very young people on this call, you might not understand this. You might not have ever seen the movie E.T., But here's the quote: "Don't be so hard on yourself. The mom in ET had an alien living in her house for days and didn't even notice." So, very often people who have a late ADHD diagnosis have been spending years and years internalizing all the negative thoughts and beliefs about themselves that other people have said about them. And I think that one of the most important messages that I like to transmit as a coach is for somebody to be kind to themselves, to be their own best friend, their own cheerleader. If you are giving yourself positive messages and encouraging yourself, then words matter. So that's why I like that quote. Just because someone carries it well doesn't mean it's not heavy. So very often we tend to evaluate or judge people on how they're doing on the outside. And there are a huge amount of my clients, women, especially with late diagnoses, that talk about masking. And, all this time as a girl, as a young girl, and later on as a woman, um, these women have been masking, they've been masking their ADHD characteristics, they've been masking their feelings, they've been masking their emotions so that they will fit in and so that they'll be able to function in society and in their families. And masking can be something that is extremely exhausting and heavy. I don't think that would come to as a surprise to anybody. This, I remember when I took this picture on my phone, this screenshot, it's so funny. Why do something right away when you can wait until it gives you a panic attack? So probably everybody who has ADHD will be able to relate to this. It's called deadline energy, waiting until you get that feeling of panic or that last minute race against the clock. And this is actually the brain seeking dopamine. So if I tell you that you have a task and the deadline is a month from now, you're gonna be like, oh, plenty of time. But if you know that maybe it's 24 hours away, that'll start getting your dopamine going. And again, this is the brain. You don't realize this, but this is your brain seeking dopamine, because ADHD, the basis of ADHD is actually dysregulation of dopamine in your brain. So if your brain is constantly seeking dopamine, what better way to do it than to wait till the last minute? And then here we go, here comes the stress. So I'll let you guys do the math in this. It's pretty simple, but this is from the book of Atomic Habits by James Clear, and this is basically my Bible, I guess I would call it. And the subtitle of the book Atomic Habits is Tiny Changes, Remarkable Results. This book was not written for people with ADHD, but I would highly recommend it because it seems like it was written for somebody with ADHD, if somebody wants to note it down. So basically what this math equation illustrates is that it's all about the small actionable steps which help you to move the needle. This is where the ADHD brain thrives, is taking small actionable steps that are very specific and that will allow you to say, I did it. I can do it. I'm going to move on. Your brain will get the reward, it will get the dopamine, and you'll be able to move forward. So you can see at the end of 365 days in this quote, you've actually made a huge change just by making this 0.01 change in your life every single day. So those favorite quotes, I hope that you enjoyed them, and I hope that even people who are not neurodivergent on this call were able to relate to them. And if you want to learn more about what I do, I don't know if Natalie is going to keep this on the screen, but here's my information. And if anybody is interested to learn about how ADHD coaching can be beneficial to them, if they're self-diagnosed or if they have an official diagnosis, please reach out to me and book a free 45-minute discovery call.